We begin today at the Mishnah on Daf Chav Chesam with Beis. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, Ha'ish Madir as Benoi Benazir. A man can take upon himself a neder that his son should become a Nazir. Exactly what he has to say. Let's wait a second. We'll see in the Gemara. What does the father say? My son should be a Nazir, and what happens? Automatically, the son becomes a Nazir. That's what it seems like the simple pshat of the Mishnah is. But Ve'ena Isha Mader says Beno Benazir. But if a mother cannot make her son into a Nazir. There's a famous question on this Mishnah that is asked by the Mefarshim and Nach regarding Shmuel and Navi, similar regarding Shimshon. How did his mother Chana make a neder? You look in the Psukim there, it says that his mother Chana took a neder that her son Shmuel should be a Nazir. How's that even? And it took effect. The Pasuk there says, how's that even possible that he should become a Nazir? It says Beferish right over here, the mother can't make a son a Nazir. Okay, there's a lot of answers to that. We'll wait later in the Masechta. It comes up again. Beferish about Shmuel and Shimshon. We'll speak about it. Keitzat. Now, what happens over here? That when a son becomes a Nazir because the father took upon himself that the son should be a Nazir, so yes, the son becomes a Nazir, but if the son does not want to be a Nazir and he rejects it, then he doesn't have to be a Nazir. That's the continuation of the mission here. Gilach oishagulchu kreuvav. If he goes ahead and cuts his hair, a Nazir is not supposed to cut his hair. He went and cut his hair, or one of his relatives went and cut his hair. One of his relatives went and said, no, it's not good for you to be a Nazir. And he went and cut his hair. Exactly which relative this is, it's a good question. It's a discussion in Mefarshim, exactly what relative. But a relative has the ability to remove the Naziris of the father. Or Micha, or the son protests and says, I don't want to be a Nazir. Or one of the relatives protests and says that he shouldn't be a Nazir. So then he's not a Nazir anymore. So now we bring back the same halacha that we learned in the previous Mishnah about a situation where someone was a Nazir and then the Naziris is absolved. So if there was already animals that were separated for the karbanis that he has to bring at the conclusion of his Naziros, but now he's not a Nazir anymore, hachatas tamus, so the carbon chatas of the Naziris has to be left to die. That's always the halacha of a chatas. The ha'ayla tikra vayla, the ayla will be brought for an ayla, not as an ayla for Naziris, but as an ayla. Ushlamim yikrivu shlamim, and the carbon shlamim will be brought as a shlamim, also for a stam shlamim. V'nachalin l'yayim echad, just like the shlamim brought for Naziris, unlike a regular shlamim that can be eaten for 2 days, this shlamim is eaten for 1 day. But ve'ena tunin lechem, the breads that are usually brought with the shlamim of Naziris, that does not have to be brought here. Hayulay ma'ais stumin, if there were monies that were dedicated for the karbanis and it was unspecified and it has in it money that's going to be used for chatas, ayla, and shlamim, and now it can't be used, it's not a nazir anymore. So yiplu linedave, as we learned before already, what happens is this money becomes a donation for the Beis HaMikdash and you bring a carbon ayla from it. Ma'is mifurashim, if it was money and it was very specific, this money is for the chatas, this is for the ayla, this is for the shlamim, so then dmei chatas, the money of the chatas, similar to the carbon chatas itself that has to be left to die, so the dmei chatas yechol yam hamelach, you take it and you dispose of it in the yam hamelach. Loy nanin, you're not allowed to have a na of it, but v'loy moilin, at the same time you're also not moil, because it's not money that's roi to be brought for a carbon. Dmei ayla, the money of the ayla, yeviu ayla. So you use it to bring a carbon ayla, umaylim behem. And there is me'ilah of this money of the ayla, because by a ayla there's me'ilah even before it's brought in the mizbeach. Dmei shlamim, yeviu shlamim, you bring from this money shlamim, v'nachal, and there's no me'ilah by it, until, by shlamim b'chlal, there's no me'ilah until the blood is sprayed in the mizbeach. And that carbon could be eaten only for 1 day, like a nazir. And you don't have to bring the breads the way it's usually brought by a carbon of a nazir. Okay, the Gemara here will focus on the first halach of the Mishnah. What's this kayach that a father has to make his son a nazir? So the Gemara, ish in avol ishaloi. So the Mishnah says a father could make his son a nazir, but a mother cannot make the son a nazir. My time, what's the reason for this distinction? Rabbi Yochanan says halacha hi benazir. This is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai regarding a nazir that a father can make a son a nazir. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina, Amar, Reish Lakish, she said in the name of Reish Lakish that the reason why a father could do this is kedei lechanchoi b'mitzvahs. It's in order to be mechanech his son to do mitzvahs. So the whole idea of a father accepting naziris for the son is an Indian of chinuch. What's the Indian of chinuch? So the Rosh here says, not really the Naziris itself is an Indian of chinuch, but the Naziris which brings to precious, b'chlal, to be separated from the world and to do what he's supposed to. So if a father sees that the son is too indulged in Olam Hazeh, the father may want to be mecharach the son for precious, to separate from the world. So therefore he's accepting Naziris for his son. So I saw one of the Mefarshim, he says that there's a difference between Rabbi Yechanan and Reish Lakish, exactly how this Naziris is accepted by the father. According to Rabbi Yechanan, that it's halacha l'Moshe miSinai. So the father says, I take upon my son a Naziris. That's it. The father is basically taking upon himself a Naziris for his son, and the son becomes a Nazir. But according to Reish Lakish, the father is saying to the son, you should be a Nazir. And even though in Atayre, a father can't make a son a Nazir, Reuven can't make Shimon a Nazir, but over here, there's a takanas chachamim, that there's an Indian of chinuch, that the father could tell his son, he has to tell his son that you have to be a Nazir, and it will take effect because of chinuch. Again?
Till what age?
Till what age? Okay, the Gemara is going to discuss it. But Pashtus, it's the age of a cotton, till bar mitzvah. That's simple, but soon the Gemara is going to discuss exactly until which age this is. Okay, well, this is a very interesting thing in Indian of chinuch over here. Okay, now the Mishnah said that the Kroivim could protest this Naziris, or really even the son himself could protest this Naziris. Okay, let's see. Now let's see the continuation of the Gemara. Let's talk to Gemara. Now, if you're saying that the idea, according to Reish Lakish, that the idea here is chinuch, that the father is machanech his son with mitzvahs. So if so, afili isha nami. So even a woman, a mother, also should be able to be machanech the son with Naziris. Doesn't the mother have to do the chinuch of the child as well? Answers the Gemara, Kasavar, Reish Lakish holds, Ish chayav l'chanach b'noi. The obligation of chinuch lies upon the man, the father, b'mitzvahs, but ve'ena isha chayav l'chanach es b'no. The mother does not have that obligation to be mechanach the son with mitzvahs. So you learn here the pshat of this Gemara. According to Reish Lakish, the mitzvah of chinuch lies upon the father and not upon the mother. But it seems like this is only Reish Lakish. According to Rabbi Yechanan, since he doesn't hold of this Indian, he says that this whole thing is a halacha l'Moshe miSinai. That's why we distinguish between a father and a mother. But as far as chinuch is concerned, from our Gemara it sounds like Rabbi Yechanan would say that the mitzvah of chinuch lies upon the father and upon the mother. Okay, but many Rishonim say, Taisva says, not here, Taisva in another place says that even Rabbi Yechanan agrees, and you see this in different places in the Gemara, that the mitzvah of chinuch lies upon the father, not upon the mother. Okay, that's what it comes out from our Gemara. The Rebbe spoke about this more than once, that Taka, the Gemara says that the mitzvah of chinuch lies upon the father and not the mother, but b'Poel Mamish you see that the mother is the one that raises the children to a large extent, even more than the father. And the actual chinuch comes from the mother. So I believe, if I remember correctly, that everyone said that it's similar to the mitzvah of Piri Viribi and other mitzvahs like that the father, the husband, needs a command to fulfill the mitzvah of chinuch. But the mother, it's innate in her nature to nurture and to be mechanach, that she doesn't even need it as a mitzvah. Okay? Hakopanim, so the Gemara over here is telling you that the mitzvah of chinuch lies upon the father. Okay, the Gemara here is going to ask a bunch of questions on Reish Lakish's opinion. The point over here the Gemara is going to show is, the moment you say, according to Rabbi Yechanan, that this is halacha l'Moshe miSinai, so there's really no questions to ask. Why like this? Why like that? It's halacha l'Moshe miSinai. Halacha l'Moshe miSinai says it's dafka the father, not the mother, and every detail that we see here about this halacha is all halacha l'Moshe miSinai. Reish Lakish that says that it's an Indian of chinuch, so on this there's many questions. Let's see. Rabbi Yechanan that says that this is all a halacha l'Moshe miSinai. So I'm to lachi, because of this I say b'noyin. The Mishnah said that a father could make his son a Nazir, but bitay, but not your daughter. But Reish Lakish, but according to Reish Lakish, afilu bitay, even a daughter as well. If the idea is chinuch, a father has to be mechanach his sons and his daughters as well. So why is it dafka the son? So the Gemara answers, no, kasava Reish Lakish holds b'noy chayav l'chanchai. His son, the father, is chayav to be mechanach. But bita and chayav l'chancha. The mitzvah of chinuch does not apply. The mitzvah of chinuch midrabanan does not apply to a daughter. Another question. Bishleim.
Is this the repetition, or is it before?
It's the same idea, but before we spoke about the mother not being included in the mitzvah of chinuch, and here we're talking about the daughter not being included in the mitzvah of chinuch. Some Mefarshim actually say that the Gemara here says that the daughter is not included in the mitzvah of chinuch. It doesn't mean b'chlal. It means regarding this subject, regarding this union of perishus that comes from Nazirus, this aspect of chinuch, a father is not mechuyev to be mechanech his daughter. But b'chlal chinuch, a father is mechuyev to be mechanech his daughter.
Why not? She
Huh?
She can be a Nazir, she can be
And a chanami, true. What's the difference? I'm not sure. But I'm just saying, you learn the Gemara of Pashtus, it seems like a father has no obligation to be mechanech his daughter in any area. But some say it's dafka when they get to the inyan that we're talking about here, Naziris. Bishleim, another question. Bishleim, the Rabbi Yechon Adam halachi ben Nazir. If you say it's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, so ahachi ben Nazirisin. So therefore, the halacha l'Moshe Sinai was accepted only for the concept of Nazirus that a father takes upon himself for his son. But Nedarim loy, other Nedarim, no, there's no such thing. There's no halacha l'Moshe Sinai for that. But according to Rish Lakish, afilu Nedarim nami. You should say that this idea of chinuch applies even for other nedarim. You have other nedarim which could be very beneficial for the idea of chinuch. A father takes upon himself to bring a carbon for his son, or it's right. He's telling his son that you should bring a carbon, or he takes whatever the father sees fit for the idea of chinuch for his son, that he should take upon his neder to do something. So why is it this dafka unique for Naziris? So the Gemara says you're right. According to the Shlakish, loy mi bayakama. The Mishnah is saying a bigger chiddush. The idea of Nedarim is that's needless to say. Loimi bayim Nedarim, needless to say when it comes to Nedarim, the less lane nivel. Other Nedarim are not necessarily something where it's painful or there's a nivel. The nivel over here doesn't literally mean, usually nivel means something which is despicable. But over here nivel means when there's a certain suffering, when you can't drink wine and so on. Other Nedarim don't necessarily have that kind of affliction. So that's obvious that the father could do that for the son. Even over here, this chinuch, which is Naziros, that it causes a certain pain, that the son can't drink wine and so on. So still, the father has the ability and the obligation to be mechanech his son with this as well. Another question, Bishlam Rabbi Yechon Halachi ben Nazir. It's understood according to Rabbi Yechon that says that this is halacha l'Moshe Sinai. So Haine Diktani, this is the meaning of what the Mishnah says. Micha, if the son himself protests, or one of the relatives comes and protests and says, no, he doesn't want the son to be a Nazir, so then he's not a Nazir. So this is part of the halacha l'Moshe Sinai, that the son or a relative could protest. Rabbi Yisir bar Chanina Amar Rish Lakish, but Rabbi Yisir bar Chanina, that's according to Rish Lakish, that this is an idea of chinuch, kol kimineya and kroivin, the amrin lei loy tigmurei mitzvahs. How are the relatives getting involved in the father's chinuch? The father's being mechanech the children, and then comes a relative and says, no, don't be mechanech your child with this mitzvah of Naziris when the father sees it fit. So the Gemara answers, yeah, actually in this case, even the son himself or relatives could get involved and say that they don't accept this type of chinuch. Why? Kesavar kol chinuch the loy choshev loy nichalei. As he holds that, according to Rish Lakish, this kind of chinuch, which is not choshev, which is not significant, or some are actually add over here into the lashon of the Gemara, that bizyainahu, this is a kind of chinuch that he's going to have to be a nazir, and therefore it'll be embarrassing for him. So lenichalei. So this kind of chinuch, if the son is able to handle and accept it, so then he becomes a nazir. But if he says he can't handle the bizyainis, this that he gets embarrassed from this chinuch of being a nazir, so then he doesn't have to accept it. Very interesting thing over here, right? When you get to the Indian of chinuch, that the father is mechanech the child, but there's the krivim that could come and get involved and say that no, that they see that this is not something the child can handle. I saw actually brought b'shem the Ramah. The Ramah wrote a sefer, I think it's called Teiris Ha'ela. So he says over here, b'ferish in this Gemara, that when it comes to chinuch, so the Indian of Nazirus is not a very, very regular kind of Indian. It's a very extreme measure that a father is being mechanech his child to be a nazir. Right, so if the father thinks that the son needs to be a nazir, so he makes him a nazir. But then you have krevim, that their assessment is that it's too much, the child can't handle it. And therefore, the child says that he doesn't, or the child says, or the krevim say he doesn't want to be a nazir. That's the concept according to Rish Lakish. Another shaila, Bishlam Rabbi Yechon Dama halachi hi ben Nazir. According to Rabbi Yechon, that says that this is halacha l'Moshe Sinai by Nazir mishum hachi megaleach. Therefore, what happens is he's going to be a Nazir, and then what happens at the conclusion of Naziris? You have to shave all the hair of your head, including your payas. Everything comes off. That's the halach of a non-Nazir. So we understand why you could do this. Va'avid hakafa, and he's also going to be makif. Hakafa means the mitzvah of payas is leisakif pa'as reishcha. Do not take off even though the corners, the hair that grows in the corners at all. So over here, when you cut off the hair by the conclusion of Naziris, you cut off all the hair, including the payas, because this is the halacha l'Moshe Sinai that this child is now a Nazir. Right? What you see from our Gemara is that halacha l'Moshe Sinai is considered to be mamish min atayra, that and therefore it pushes off this loisese of not cutting off your payas. El Rabbi Yisir bar Chanina Amar Rish Lakish Kedei l'chancha b'mitzvahs. This entire Nazirus is not really min ha'Torah. It's all midrabanan, just for the idea of chinuch. So how could this be haka'avad ha'kafe? How could this chinuch, this Nazirus, which is only a chinuch, allow the child at the conclusion of the Nazirus to not cut off all the hair, including also the payas?
That's for everybody.
Huh?
That's for every Nazir.
Why?
Not so an adult also.
No, but every Nazirus, the Torah itself says. The Torah says that a Nazir should cut off all his hair, including the payas. That's min ha'Torah. But if the Nazirus is midrabanan, then how could this Nazirus midrabanan push off the hakafa to cut off all the hair? Answers the Gemara, kasavar, you're going to have to say that Reish Lakish holds, hakafas kol haroish midrabanan. When you cut all the hairs of your head, so min ha'Torah, there's no issue to cut off the payas as well. When are you not allowed to cut off the payas? Is if you're not cutting all the hair, you're leaving, you're being makif the roish, you're taking a haircut in such a way that you cut the payas, but you're leaving other hairs. But when you cut all the hairs, min ha'Torah, then you're allowed to cut your payas. Only midrabanan you're not allowed to cut the payas. So it's only Issa midrabanan and v'chinuch midrabanan. Now this chinuch, this nazirus over here, which is also a chinuch, is also midrabanan. V'asi chinuch derabanan. So this nazirus, which is a chinuch midrabanan, v'dachi hakafa derabanan. So the rabbanan themselves that said that you're not allowed to cut off your payas when you cut off all your hairs of your head. So they say that in this situation of this nazirus, you are allowed. Another question, Bishlam with Rabbi Yechanan, it's understood according to Rabbi Yechanan, ben Nazir, that this Nazir says, Allah Sinai, Ahachi, so therefore, Megaleach, cuts off all his hair, and Maisi carbon. You can bring the carbonis at the conclusion of the Naziris. Rabbi Yisr, Rabbi Chanina, Amr Reish Lakish, Kedei l'chancha b'mitzvahs, but Reish Lakish that says it's just a chinuch for mitzvahs, Haka Maisi cholon lazara. If so, it's not a Naziris min ha'Torah, so the carbonis min ha'Torah, you're bringing chulin, you bring animals that min ha'Torah are not a carbon into the azara. How could he bring the carbonis at the conclusion of his naziris? So the Gemara gives a similar answer here. Kasava, you'll have to say, Reish Lakish holds chulin ba'azara. The isser of bringing animals that are chulin into the azara, lav da'iraisa. It's not a isser min ha'Torah. So if it's not a isser min ha'Torah, the Rabbanan say that this chinuch mit Rabbanan pushes off this isser mit Rabbanan of bringing these animals into the azara. Another shayla bishleim Rabbi Yechanan da Malachi ben Nazir, according to Rabbi Yechanan, that says that it's Allah l'meishim misinai ahachi. Therefore, ki metame. In a situation where the Nazir, this child, would become tamei, what happens when the child becomes tamei? You also have to bring karbanis. So maisi carbon siparin. The karbanis of a Nazir that becomes tamei, you have to bring two birds. One is a chatas and one is a ayla. And what happens? The birds are not shechted properly. Right? There's malika. That's what's done. Right, with the fingernail of the kayin. And then after malika is done, v'achol kayin, malika, the kayin could eat from this malika. It's not a proper shchita. If it was not a carbon, this kind of a malika with a fingernail is an avela. Right? But over here, when it's a carbon, you can eat from it. But according to Reish Lakish, that says that really minat Torah, you don't even have to bring this carbon. So he's not a nazir b'chlal. So then it's not a proper shchita. How could the Kainim eat from these two birds that were brought as the carbon for this Naziris that became Tommy? It's Nevela. Answers the Gemara, Kasavar, Rabbi Yesi bar Yehuda. Rabbi Reish Lakish, that is rather, holds like Rabbi Yesi bar Rabbi Yehuda, the ein shchite la'oif min ha'Torah, that there's no shchite, there's no mitzvah of shchite for birds, for birds min ha'Torah. The whole Indian of shchite is all midrabanan. Where exactly is the source that Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda said this? So it's not clear. You don't find really any other place in Shas where Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda says it. But the Gemara here is saying that Rabbi Yesi Rabbi Yehuda holds that there's no Indian of shchita for oif min ha'Torah. It's all midrabanan, and therefore Chachamim said that over here regarding the Naziris, you're allowed to eat the birds without shchita because they wanted this chinuch midrabanan for this nazir. Huh? Again, a fish there's no shchita b'chlal, not even with the rabbanan either. Yeah, but I'm saying just the minat Torah there's no shchita for oifis. Frag the Gemara. Sorry, this goes together, I believe. Again, the ein shchita loif minat Torah and the chulin ba'azara lav da'iraisa. And also, like we said before already, that chulin in the azara is not minat Torah. So therefore, Chachamim pushed this off for the chinuch. So we're saying that this is the opinion of Rabbi Yesi. Two things. That Rabbi Yesi holds that there's no shchita for the oif min ha'Torah, and also there's no issa of chulin being brought into the azara min ha'Torah. But does Rabbi Yossi hold this? But we learned in Abraisa, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says, Minayin lechatos ha'oif shehi ba'al ha'safik. From where do I see that a chatos oif could be brought even in a situation when the avera or the reason it's being brought for is only a safik? And she'enon achelas, it is brought as a carbon for a safik, but even after you bring it as a safik, but nevertheless it cannot be eaten in the Beis Hamikdash by the Kohanim. So where do you see? So the Brisa says, Talmud Loima, the pasuk says, V'hazav ezoivai la zachar v'lenakeva. So the pasuk compares the halachas of a zav, whether it's a zachar or it's a nekeva. Makish nekeva la zachar. So we compare the karbanis of a nekeva to a zachar. In what sense? Ma zachar mevi carbon ala vadai, af nekeva mevi a carbon ala vadai. Just like a zachar, if he's a vadai zav, so he brings a carbon. So a nekeva also has to bring a vadai carbon. Now, Uma Zachar, just like by a Zachar, Mevi ala Safik, you find by a Zachar that in a situation of a Safik, he has to bring a carbon, and this is the Asham Toli, a Asham where it's not clear if he did an Aved or not. He has to bring a carbon. Af Nekeva, Mevi ala Safik. And the Keva also has to bring a carbon for a Safik. Ma Zachar, Mi Minshu, Mevi ala Vadai, Mevi ala Safik, just like he brings a Behemah for a carbon when he's chayiv vaday on a carbon. So same thing by Asham Toli, when it's a safik, he has to bring also a behemah. After nekeva, so too when it comes to a nekeva, when she has to bring a carbon for her being a zav, mimin she mivia ala vaday mivia ala safik. The same min, which is an oif actually, that she brings, a bird that she brings for a safik, or for a vaday rather, same thing she has to bring for a safik. Okay, so you see that the carbon chatos by a bird is brought, whether it's a vaday, whether it's a safik. But now the Brisa says, "Ima zachar mevi carbon v'nechal." You would think that just like by the zachar, what's the halacha of asham talui of a zachar? The carbon is brought, and the kohanim can eat from it. After nekeva, you would say the same thing should be by a nekeva mevi carbon v'nechal. So she brings an oif for a safik, and the kohanim should also be able to eat it. So the Brisa says, "No, amrit loy." That's not the halacha. By a oif that's brought for a safik, it cannot be eaten by the kohanim. Why? What's the difference? The difference is, if you say by a zachar that has to bring a asham taloi, he brings a behemah for his carbon. So over there, when it's a safik, if this carbon has to be brought, but the reason why the kohanim could eat it is because shekain iser echad. Over here, there's only one, the safik causes a safik regarding one iser, which is the iser of whether you're allowed to bring this behemah into the azada or not. Taimar b'nekeva, however, by the nekeva over here, when you're bringing a bird, and it's a suffix whether this bird has to be brought for a carbon or not, shishnei yisurim. Over here, there are actually two yisurim that come as a result of this suffix. So the Gemara says, Ma shnei yisurim. What are the two yisurim that come as a result of this suffix? So lav, don't you think? Isser nevela. There's the isser nevela because there's no proper shchita, it's only melika with the kohen's fingernail. And also the chulin ba'azara, and there's a suffix whether you're bringing chulin to the azara. So this is who's this brisa? Who's speaking over here in this brisa? This is all Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. So you see, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says that there's when there's a bird that's brought as a carbon of a suffix, there's two sfekis, whether it's chulin ba'azara or whether this shchita is okay to be eaten. It's really without shchita, whether it's okay for the kohen to eat it or not. So over here you see l'chayda that Rabbi Yossi holds that both of these are isser minat Torah. So how can we say that they're not? So the Gemara says that why are you learning the pshat? What's your raya from this brayse that it's a isser minat Torah? Maskef lo Rav Acha berei de Rav Ikke. So Rav Acha berei de Rav Ikke asked on this question, V'dilme mechayev aleh mishum des mischazi ketren yisurim midrabanan. Maybe all the brayse means to say is that over here we're not going to allow the kohen to eat this suffix carbon of the birds because there's two yisurim midrabanan. By the behemah, there's one isser midrabanan, that it might be chulin ba'azara. And by the birds, it's two isurim midrabanan. Some of the Rishonim take out these words here, mischazi ketrein, but it's not really mischazi, but it's trein, it's two isurim that are only midrabanan. So the point remains that according to the Shlakish, we could say that the isser of bringing chulin to the azara is only midrabanan, and the isser of eating from the bird without proper shchita is also only midrabanan. So therefore it's not a question how it's possible to say that this nazirus is all a chinuch nazirus midrabanan and still he could bring these karbanis. Sagt the Gemara weiter, Leimeke Tanoi, shall we say that this machlokes of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, whether the Naziris that the father takes upon himself for the son is a halacha l'moshe misinai, so it's minat Torah, or it's only a chinuch midrabanan. So seemingly this is the machlokes of the following Tanoim here. So it says, Nabraise ad mosai mader as b'noi b'nazir. Exactly until which age could a father take Naziris for his son? So one opinion is at sheyavi shtei until the point when he becomes a gadol, when he has 2 hairs that shows that he's a gadol. Divrei Rabbi. This is Rabbi's opinion. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says at sheyagia lo'onis nedarim, until he comes to the age of nedarim. What's the age of nedarim? So this is something that it says in the Gemara Nida that a year before the bar mitzvah, from 12 years old, so the child is called a mufla hasamoch leish. If he makes a neder, we have to check out if he understands what he's saying, and if he does, then the neder takes effect. So the father could only make a neder for his son until the age that the son could make nedarim. After that age, the father can't anymore. So what's the explanation of this machlokes? So my lav tanoi, don't you think that these tanoim here are arguing in the machlokes of Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish? The Rebbe savar, Rebbe's opinion is halacha hi benazir, that this idea, the father taking the zidus for the son, is a halacha l'moshe misinai regarding a nazir. And therefore, va'afal gav dehigia lo'onis nedarim, even the son, he comes to the age where the son could take a neder on himself, he can make himself a nazir, but madel avazul adamai shtei sayis. But nevertheless, the halacha l'moshe misinai says that the father's power to take naziris for his son is until the bar mitzvah or until shtei sayis, when you know that the son is a gadol. But Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda the Amar achi yagia lo'onis nedarim. So Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda that says that the father takes naziris for his son only till the age when the son could make nedarim on his own. So his opinion is that kidei l'chancha b'mitzvahs, that the father could only take this naziris for his son for the point of chinuch and mitzvahs. At this age, when the son takes naziris upon himself, he's out of the reshus of the father as far as nedarim are concerned. So sulay mechayiv. So now the father doesn't have this chiyuv, he doesn't have this ability and this chiyuv to take the nedarim for naziris for his son. So that's what it seems like is the. So this machlokes between Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda is the machlokes that we said before. So the Gemara answers Amri. They explained not necessarily is this the machlokes here. And the Gemara gives 2 explanations. Either you could say the kula alma, everybody here agrees halacha hi benazir, that it's a halacha l'moshe misinai that the father takes naziris for his son. So what's the machlokes if that's till age 13 or until the son is really a gadol, or a year before, till only 12 when he's a mufla hasamoch leish. Here, the argument between Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda is regarding this concept of mufla hasamoch leish, that a year before the bar mitzvah, the son could make nedarim on his own, and it will take effect. They argue about what the source of this is. Rabbi holds mufla hasamoch leish d'Rabbanan. It's really only midrabanan. This power is not an inyan min ha-Torah. Chachamim were the ones that gave this child from the age 13, this kayak that is nedarim should take effect. Even though the Gemara learns it out from a pasuk, ki yafle linda neder, but it's all on asmachta. It's really all midrabanan. So therefore, va'asiyah de'oraisa, the halach l'moshe misina of naziris, which is min ha-Torah. Here you see again the lashon of the Gemara that a halach l'moshe misina is considered to be like a mamish, like min ha-Torah. Dachi derabanan. So it pushes off the child's kayak b'derabbanan, that he could take naziris upon himself, but the father still has the power min ha-Torah to make his son a nazir. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda savar, on the other hand, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda holds mufla samach leish doiraisa. The power of this son from age 12 to take naziris upon himself is already min ha-Torah. It's learned from a pasuk. So at that point, the child is out of the father's reshus min ha-Torah regarding naziris. So the father's kayak of naziris doesn't continue. It's one pshat. Or if you want, I'll tell you another pshat. The kula alma, both opinions, Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, they both agree that the whole idea of a father taking naziris for his son is just for chinuch min derabanan. And the idea that a son from age 12 could take nedarim upon himself is also only midrabanan. So what's the machlokes here? Rabbi's opinion is asi chinuch derabanan v'dachi mufla samach leish derabanan, that the Rabbanan themselves established and said that this idea that the son could take naziris upon himself from age 12 is only midrabanan. The kayach of the father, which is also only midrabanan, is stronger, and they decided that this kayach midrabanan pushes off the child's kayach to take naziris upon himself, and the father can make his son a nazir even at that age. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda the Amar Achi Gia La'Inus Nedarim. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says that the father could only make his son a nazir till age 12, but from that point not. Kasavar, he holds that no Chacham did not want that the koyach of the father should push off the koyach that the son has to make himself a nazir. From that point on, since Chacham established that he can make himself a nazir, so it doesn't push off the son's koyach. Okay, so therefore, the machlokes of Rabbi Yechon and Shlakish is not the machlokes Tanaim over here. Okay, the next Indian goes into the next Mishnah, so leave it for tomorrow, Mitzvah.